What if I told you that one of the greatest football players in history spent nearly 2 decades chasing a trophy he would never touch? Not because he wasn't talented, not because he didn't work harder than everyone else, and not because he failed when it mattered most. So, how could Cristiano Ronaldo, a man who conquered almost everything football had to offer, never conquer the FIFA World Cup? It doesn't make sense. 5 Ballon d'Or awards, Champions League titles, league trophies in multiple countries, more international goals than anyone in history. Records that once seemed impossible became ordinary whenever Ronaldo stepped onto the pitch. For years, he made the impossible look easy, except for one competition, the one every footballer dreams about. Most people think they already know the answer. Football is a team sport, but if that were the whole story, this video wouldn't exist, because hidden behind every World Cup Ronaldo played were moments, decisions, and heartbreaks that quietly shaped football history. And one of them still sparks debate among fans to this day. To understand why the greatest prize in football always slipped through Ronaldo's hands, we first have to understand how a boy with an impossible dream became one of the greatest players the world has ever seen. Long before the trophies, before the records, before the world knew his name, Cristiano Ronaldo had the same dream as millions of young footballers: to stand on football's biggest stage and lift the FIFA World Cup. He wasn't chasing fame. He wasn't chasing Ballon d'Or awards. He was chasing immortality. Then, something extraordinary happened. Year after year, Ronaldo kept reaching new heights. He conquered England, then Spain, then Italy. He broke scoring records that experts believed would never fall. Every season, he seemed to reinvent himself. Faster, stronger, more complete. Every challenge only made him greater, and with every new trophy, the expectation grew. If anyone was destined to win the World Cup, surely it had to be Cristiano Ronaldo. By the time he entered his prime, the football world believed it wasn't a question of if, but when. Because history had always worked that way. The greatest players eventually lifted the greatest trophy, or so everyone thought. But football was about to tell a very different story. Every 4 years, another opportunity arrived. Another chance to make history. Another chance to complete the perfect career. Yet somehow, each World Cup ended with the same feeling: hope, followed by heartbreak. And the first chapter of that heartbreak began in Germany in 2006. Germany, the summer of 2006. Cristiano Ronaldo was only 21 years old, young, fearless, and playing in his very first World Cup. Portugal surprised almost everyone, match after match. They kept advancing. Suddenly, the dream no longer felt impossible. It felt close, painfully close. Only 2 matches separated Ronaldo from the biggest trophy in football, but then everything stopped. Portugal fell in the semifinal, and just like that, the dream was postponed. Not destroyed, just delayed, or so everyone believed. 4 years later, South Africa. Ronaldo returned, older, stronger, more experienced. This time, the expectations were even higher. But football doesn't reward expectations. Portugal ran into Spain, a team that would go on to become world champions. 1 goal, 1 defeat, another World Cup. Gone. Then came Brazil. For the first time, something felt different. Time. The unstoppable opponent every athlete eventually faces. Portugal struggled from the very beginning. Injuries, tough opponents, missed opportunities. The tournament ended almost before it had truly begun. And suddenly, people started asking a question no one wanted to hear. What if Ronaldo never wins the World Cup? Then, Russia. Perhaps the greatest performance of Ronaldo's World Cup career. a breathtaking hat trick against Spain. The world watched in disbelief. For a moment, it felt like destiny had finally arrived. Maybe this was the year. Maybe history was finally changing. But football can be brutally unforgiving. One difficult night against Uruguay, and the dream disappeared once again. By 2022, everyone knew time was running out. This could be one of Ronaldo's final opportunities, another chance to chase the only trophy still missing from his career. Portugal looked stronger than ever. Young talent, a balanced squad, real hope. But the World Cup writes its own stories. Morocco shocked the football world. Portugal were eliminated. And as Ronaldo walked toward the tunnel, tears filled his eyes. For many people, it looked like the end. But Ronaldo's World Cup story still had one final chapter left. Then came 2026, 20 years after his first World Cup. Ronaldo returned for one last attempt. He was no longer the fearless 21-year-old who had arrived in Germany. He was a global icon, carrying 2 decades of expectations on his shoulders. This time, he wasn't trying to prove that he was one of the greatest. The world already knew that. He was chasing the only achievement that had always escaped him. Portugal survived the group stage and defeated Croatia to reach the round of 16. Waiting for them was Spain, a familiar rival, and perhaps the cruelest possible opponent for Ronaldo's final World Cup chapter. 90 minutes separated Portugal from another chance at history. But one goal changed everything. Spain won. Portugal were eliminated. And the dream Ronaldo had carried for nearly 2 decades, was finally over. No miraculous comeback. No final celebration. No image of Ronaldo lifting the trophy above his head. Instead, his World Cup journey ended the same way it had so many times before. With Portugal walking away, while another nation continued toward the trophy. 6 World Cups, 20 years, countless unforgettable moments, and countless heartbreaks. But were those defeats really Ronaldo's fault? Or was something much bigger, hiding beneath the surface all along? Because once you look beyond the goals, beyond the trophies, and beyond the headlines, you begin to see a truth that completely changes the way we judge greatness.